ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special episode of the Built on Purpose podcast, where each episode I interview exceptional leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, philosophers, and straight up interesting people to explore their outlook on life, work, and leadership. My hope for our listeners is that you can take away a special nugget of information from each of these interviews, something that will serve you and the people most important to you in pursuing a life built on purpose. My name is Brian Moore, co-founder and managing partner of Y Scouts, and today I'm interviewing Kristen Hadeed, the founder of Student Maid. In this episode, Kristen shares with us her journey, a journey which began with a desire to buy a pair of expensive blue jeans. From one simple pair of blue jeans, a company was born that is flying in the face of the current stereotype that millennials are entitled and not willing to do the hard work to grow their careers. If you haven't heard of Student Maid, it's a cleaning company. That's right, college students cleaning toilets. Over the last 7 years, Kristen has grown Student Maid from just an idea to a place where college students gain valuable real work experience and where the students virtually manage themselves. Accountability and feedback, two of the many important lessons being taught at Student Maid. If you have kids who are about to go into school and you're wondering how they're going to do in the real world, or you have millennials in your workplace, this is an interview you do not want to miss. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this engaging interview with Kristen Hadeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to bring onto the show Kristen Hadeed. Kristen, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this.
So I want to jump right in. And as I was doing some of my research, I stumbled upon a TEDx talk. And in it, you were talking about an experience back when you were 15 that really changed how you thought about work. And this impact I'm referring to dealt directly with a science teacher that you really, there was something so magical about this experience and a feeling that has really guided how you approach work. And I want you to share a little bit. Can you share with us that story to give a little bit of a framework of how all this started?
Yes, I'm so glad you chose this story. It's my favorite story. So I had a teacher, and actually she was my middle school science teacher. Her name is Miss Tracer. And she taught me in middle school, and then moving on to high school, I was really bummed that she, wouldn't be my teacher anymore. And then we learned that Miss Tracer was also moving to our high school. So it was really exciting. And my sophomore year in high school, I learned that Miss Tracer was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was, pretty bad. She had to get chemotherapy. And I remember sitting at lunch with 5 of my friends, and we were just talking about Miss Tracer and what can we do for her? And we came to the realization that we can't take her cancer away, but there's got to be something that we can do. And we were only 15 years old. And we came up with this idea. We called it Project Pink. And we knew that Miss Tracer would get her chemotherapy treatments on Tuesdays. So we thought if we could get the whole school to wear pink on Tuesdays, it would show Miss Tracer that we're supporting her, and Miss Tracer would come to work after her treatment. So we started Pink Tuesdays, and we didn't tell anyone that we were the ones behind this project. And what happened was pretty incredible. It spread, this little initiative that these 15-year-olds started, spread throughout our community. You would go to the grocery store on a Tuesday, and people in the grocery store would be wearing pink, or you would drive by the movie theater, and on the marquee it would say, "Wear pink on Tuesdays for Mrs. Tracer." And she ended up beating her cancer. And when we graduated from high school, my friends and I decided to reveal that we were the ones behind Project Pink, so that Miss Tracer would know that it was us. And so we came into her classroom, and we had the school band, and the band was playing music, and we did this whole reveal and told her we were the ones behind Project Pink. And she got really emotional, and she told us that we saved her life. She said, "I felt alone, and then with the support of Project Pink, I felt like I wasn't alone anymore, and that's why I survived." And I didn't really realize at that age the magnitude of what I had learned. And now looking back, I realized the reason why that was so special is because here we were doing all this work for her, but she didn't know it was us. We were in the background, and it was all about Miss Tracer. It was all about bringing people together. And it didn't matter if we got the credit or not. And I think that's what leadership is about. I think leadership is, standing on the sidelines, not taking the credit, letting your people take the credit. And I also learned what it feels like to be working on something you really are passionate about and you really care about. And I think at 15, that was a great thing for me to feel because I always looked for that feeling. And I could say that with my cleaning company that I started in college, I had that feeling. And that is why I turned down a job in finance to stick with my cleaning company, because I chose to go after the same feeling I had that I felt when I worked on Project Pink.
Yeah, so talk a little bit more about that. And by the way, thank you so much for sharing that story. It's hearing you tell it live is even more powerful than what I was able to watch on the video, which was fantastic as well. But it's just fantastic. When you started Student Maid and you had that opportunity with the finance company to pursue a quote unquote real job, and there was this feeling, this intuitive felt sense of, I'm going to turn down the conventional wisdom and continue to pursue this thing that I've created. Were you able, was it super apparent for you as to what the feeling was about how Student Maid was creating impact, or has that come over time?
That it certainly has come over time. And I remember, I graduated, I was 21 years old, and here I am being offered this job, and it's the dream job. It's what every internship and every organization I was a part of, it was supposed to be leading me to this job, living in New York, this big salary, finance. And when I looked at that job, I just wasn't excited about it. And for some reason, I was so excited about this cleaning company, but we were cleaning toilets, and I couldn't articulate or explain why I chose Student Maid. The answer I would give people is it just feels right. And it took me a long time to realize what it is about Student Maid that makes me feel this way. And it's not the cleaning. I realized that the cleaning is the vehicle, and the vehicle can always change. It's that our culture is very much about building people up, especially these young people. We employ students, and so this is a really critical time, I think, in their lives where we can have a really big impact. And it's not about cleaning. It's about growing these people and teaching them things that are critical for their success down the road. And we measure our success based on how much they learn and grow. And I would say it probably took me 5 or 6 years to realize that's what it is for me. And I do these other things. I love, speaking to college students. And I think it's the same thing. It's because I hope to have an impact in their lives. I hope to teach them things that I learned so that they can be more successful because of what they heard. And I think all these things have something in common. And the thread that is between all of them is that I'm really excited about empowering people to try to transcend whatever limit they have that they think is holding them back. And it just so happens that Student Maid is a vehicle where we can do that every day with our people.
Is there criteria around who you will employ from the students versus those that you won't?
Yes. When we started, I had a 3.5 GPA requirement. And the reason was I got a contract and I had a short period of time to hire a lot of people. And so I figured that would be a good way to weed people out. And I had a 3.51 GPA at the time. So that was the cutoff, could not go higher than that. And I realized over time, a 3.5 GPA doesn't really mean anything. Yeah, you're doing well in your classes, but it doesn't show a person's heart. It doesn't show if a person is really open to growing and learning and good at, wanting feedback. So we totally changed the way that we recruit, and it's based on, you have to be a student. It doesn't matter if you're in high school, college, graduate school, cosmetology school. You have to be a student. And we really test, an interview, is this somebody who is open to learning and growing? Because what our culture is about. And the 3.5 GPA doesn't matter to us anymore because it doesn't define who a person is.
It's interesting because a lot's been made over the last handful of years, and I'll pick on Google just for a moment. That they were always so well known for having some of the most unique hiring processes, and obviously a lot was based upon pedigree and school graduated from and GPA and all kinds of really interesting, challenging interview questions, and they have since gone completely away from that because they found no correlation between where somebody went to school and what their GPA is and on the job performance and impact delivered. And it sounds like you sort of figured out the same thing through your own trial and error.
Definitely.
So,
and I think we don't even have interview questions. Like it's a conversation, and we truly try to get to know who this person is and what they're looking for, because the question to us is, will they thrive here? It's not, will they make us money? Will they be somebody who, is able to clean a lot of houses? It's, will they thrive? Will they enjoy it? Will they look forward to walking through our doors every day? And I think to do that, you have to really be able to have a conversation and build a relationship and ask questions that might be non-traditional.
So if I go a little deeper on these concepts of learning and growing, which are fantastic, right? I mean, people who want to learn, who want to grow, underneath that is likely an incredible sense of curiosity and just having this unbridled sense of wonder. How do you determine if someone is truly and genuinely curious?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think so. Most of our employees are millennials, and the millennial generation, and I'm a millennial. Feedback is very hard to take because many of us are not used to that direct feedback. A lot of times, the first time we're getting it is in our first job. So there are students that we have, though, that they ask, what could I be doing better? Tell me more about that. Or, in the interview, even asking questions like, is there anything I could have done better in my interview? When I see something like that, I know somebody is really open to learning and growing and just get curious, like, what could I be doing better? And I think with the generation we're working with, that is just, when we see that, we know that's an instant sign that this person is really, really open to learning and growing. I would say most people, we have to kind of get them over this hump. Like I wouldn't say everyone comes into our culture completely ready to be pushed into their, the zone that is not comfortable. I think that we have to push them there, but the question is, how far do we have to push them?
Got it.
So we have a rule, and the rule at Student Maid is we're going to give you everything that we possibly can. We're going to give you the foundation, give you all the tools. We're going to believe in you. We are going to be standing right there. We are on your team, but you have got to be standing there too. And we've got to see that you're making progress and you're coming closer to where we're standing. So we require that everyone shows up. That means mentally, you got to be there. You got to be present. You have to be trying. And as long as you're doing that, we're going to hang in there. But if we're having to carry you, we can carry you a day or two. But if we have to carry the same person every day, it's not working out. And that's how we evaluate who stays on the team and who doesn't.
And so I would have to assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that oftentimes for the properties, whether it's commercial or residential that you're cleaning, that you're sending crews. It's not necessarily just one person solo. I'm sure that may happen from time to time, but I'll assume it's mostly in crews. Do the crews, are they self-managing or self-regulating crews? Do they sort of help weed people out when that's just too much of a burden to carry and somebody just is consistently underperforming?
Yeah, so our crew, we do send always in teams of 2, sometimes more than 2. They have complete autonomy. They don't have a manager over their shoulder. And we're very big on accountability and feedback. And we teach, part of our training is how to have these conversations where you need to call somebody out on something that they're doing, on how they're hurting the team, on the impact they're having on the people around them. And we make these conversations comfortable. They're a part of our culture. So it's really common that one of our, a member from our leadership team will walk in. I call our management team our leadership team. So a member of our leadership team will walk in, and one of our students will give them feedback on how they could be a better manager, a better leader. So it's a very comfortable environment where those conversations are normal, they're required. And we find that our employees are able to solve their own problems. Like, if there's a team member that's not carrying their weight, our students are comfortable telling that person and helping them improve. And then if it gets to a point where that person isn't, showing up, then we hear, hey, I've tried everything and this person is still doing this. And then we say, okay, it's probably time to go. But we've created a culture where 14-year-olds have autonomy, and 14 and 15-year-olds who are, glued to their cell phones are able now to look someone in the eye, and sometimes someone much older than them, and give direct feedback on how that person could be better.
You talk about millennials, and it's obviously a very hot topic as, the younger generations and even the generation following the millennials over the next handful of years, that these are going to be the largest segments of our workforce, and not better, not worse, just different than the generations that have come before them. And I think, frankly, my opinion, and I'm going to guess yours as well, is that millennials have received a lot of criticism. And frankly, I think millennials, for the first time in perhaps a long time, have their priorities straight. I'm curious, what's been the biggest learnings for you about this group that you've been employing over the last handful of years?
Well, I think number one, it's the understanding of why are the millennials the way they are. And I think we have to look to parenting. I think that our parents wanted to give us everything that they didn't have and more. And we were the generation that got the trophy when we didn't even hit the ball once all season. And we got the pizza party when we won last place. And we got a sticker if we got an A, but we also got a sticker if we got a D. So we grew up with praise and constant, recognition. And I think that a lot of our parents didn't, maybe they didn't let us fail because they loved us, but they protected us. And so now here we are going into the workplace. We've never really failed before. So we're afraid to mess up because we don't know what happens when we mess up, because we've never really experienced it. And the last place we want it to happen is at work, especially our first time really messing up. We don't know how to handle feedback. And, sometimes we might cry, we might get angry. I mean, we have parents who call us when we give their children feedback sometimes. I mean, we do not know how to handle it because we're not used to it. So I think number one is we have to have an understanding of why we are this way. And then we have to look at the way we're leading. And I think leading and parenting are pretty similar. If our millennials can't solve problems at work because they're so afraid of failure, are we doing anything to contribute to that problem? Are we solving the problems of our millennials at work? Or are we creating a culture that says, you know what, you're going to solve the problem, and it's okay if you fail because that's how you learn. And the next time you get faced with a problem like that, you're going to be more confident going into that situation. So I think the biggest thing I realized is we built a culture where we're doing everything wrong. We're letting people fail. We're letting them make mistakes. We're actually pushing them to do these things. We're giving them feedback. We're watching them cry, and we're giving it to them again. We're doing everything wrong in that sense, but we're getting it right, because every time they fail, it's hard to watch. It's hard for them. But then the next time, they're so much better. And then the next time, they're so much better. And then they build confidence, and they can solve these problems, and they're more empowered. And then when we give them feedback the first time, yeah, it's terrible, but the second time's better, the third time's better, and then they get to a point where they can give feedback to others. So I think the one thing I would say that I see is we play the victim. Millennials say, this organization isn't right for me because of the leaders in this organization or because of this organization. And an organization will say, this organization, the culture isn't right because of our millennials. And millennials are the problem. But we're both playing the victim. Like, really, we need each other. We we have to put down the finger that's blaming the other. And we both need each other to build an environment that brings out the best in everyone. And we all want the same thing. We all need the same thing. It's to contribute to something and to feel like we belong to something. That's a human need. That's not just a millennial need. So it's tough, but it's very challenging. But I think we have to understand, take a second to pause and say, why is it the way it is?
Yeah.
And when we have that understanding, we can start to bridge that gap.
So in this spirit of encouraging positive failure, forward-looking failure, learning experiences, has any of that culture had a negative impact on your customers' experiences, or have you been able to involve and essentially enroll some of your customers in being a part of this really profound set of failing forward experiences that might be happening for the first time for these folks?
Yes. So our customers, they know when they hire Student Maid, they are getting a student who, I will say, we are not the best cleaning service. When it comes to the technical, like the actual cleaning, we train, yes, but we believe, train for a little bit, send them out into the houses. Like, they're going to learn, they're going to figure it out. And our customers buy into that. And they buy into the fact that they're helping this young person grow and learn by giving feedback. And they look for ways to do that. So when the student messes up, I would say in another cleaning company, maybe the customer would be really upset. But instead, with our service, the customer says, "Ooh, this is a chance to make that a learning opportunity." Everything we do is about feedback.
How do you properly, because it's a fascinating environment that you've created. You're involving your customers in this unbelievable learning opportunity for your employees. How do you make sure that the customer is really bought into that? I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, whenever it comes to a new customer, we really spend time explaining to them what it is that we're doing here, and why we exist, why feedback is so important. And we can tell in that conversation if this customer is somebody who's really bought into that, or if they're looking for like the best cleaning service. We might say, our students are probably going to mess up, and maybe we're not the best fit. And so we do say no to people. And I think that's hard to do as a business, but we want people who are in line with what who believe what we believe, and who've bought into our why, which is all about this empowering these young people to grow and transcend these limits. So we have to say no. We have to turn people down, but we make sure that it's clear what you're buying into. And sometimes we get it wrong and we think the customer might be a great fit, but it usually takes a service or two to realize it's not working out. And we don't have a problem with telling the customer, you'd probably be happier somewhere else, and that move might be better for you and for us.
I love the idea of involving the customers in this learning opportunity and using that really as a criteria for whether or not they're going to be the right customer for you. I think it's fantastic, and obviously creates just this wonderful environment. So kudos to you for having the courage to do that and be able to turn business away. Because as you said, revenue obviously is a requirement. Be socially irresponsible to not drive profitability, but how you do it really matters, and who you do it with really matters. So kudos to you for that. I want to talk for a moment about values. And I had a chance to visit your site, your personal site, and you list out your core values. Find the positive in every situation, be present, believe in and empower others. In my world, and working with organizations and with leaders, there's not a whole lot of people that have actually been able to identify what their core values are. So a few questions on that. How did you do it? How did you know they were the right ones for you? And is there advice you can share so others can follow in your footsteps?
Mhm. It's funny that you bring up those values because that's a reminder that I need to change my website. So let me tell you about our values. So we have 10 core values at Student Maid, and these 10 core values came about because of a book I read that I'm sure you're familiar with called Delivering Happiness by
Sure.
Tony Hsieh.
Of course.
Zappos. And I read that when I was in college, and it sparked some interest in me, and I thought, man, I really should have some values for this company. And so we did that. As a team, we identified 10 things that we thought were the most important things, and we really wanted to make them catchy and ones that we would remember. So for example, one is be classy, not sassy, because our slogan is cleaning with class, and so we're always representing this brand. So we came up with these 10 things, and sometimes I'll be speaking and someone will ask me, what are your 10 values? And I can always name 9 of them. And then there's this, it's always a different one every time. I'm like, I ever remember all 10. And so then I started thinking, if I can't remember all 10, how on earth can I expect anyone else to remember all 10? So I did this little experiment, and this was actually not too long ago, we had a leadership team meeting, and I put a blank piece of paper in everyone's spot at 10, and I said, okay, write down our 10 values. And it was shocking. I mean, people who have been with our company since the beginning, since 2009, they could get 4 out of 10. So, and we talk about our values all the time. I mean, they're on our wall. So you have to walk by them every day. So we just kind of laughed as a group, and we thought, well, man, if we're averaging 4 out of 10, what are our students averaging? That can't be good. So what we determined is these values, first of all, you can't remember 10. So we decided to narrow it down to 5. We didn't get rid of our values, but we decided to make actions, because when you look at a value, like let's say integrity is a value, or leadership or teamwork, everyone has a different definition of it. And you can't tell somebody, hey, live up to our teamwork value, and expect that they know what that means and what that looks like. So we came up with 5 actions. We said, if we do these 5 things every single day, our values will come to life. So for example, one is we always take the time to stop, smile, and say hello. So when you walk into our office, each person you encounter stops, acknowledges you, they smile at you, and they say hello. And another one is we always take the opportunity to ask what we could do better. So when I'm having a conversation with a team member, I say, is there anything we could be doing better for you? When we talk to a customer, when our students talk to customers, is there anything that I could be doing better? So we've given these 5 actions. We know exactly what they look like. They're very simple. They're very easy to understand. And now we can remember all 5, and we know what to do every day. And if we just do these 5 things, the values come to life. So I think the key when it comes to values is think about action. The value is the result. If you want people to live with integrity, well, what does that look like? It could be something like we always tell the truth, even when it's hard. Or if you want people to honor a value of commitment, it could be we always do what we say we're going to do. Think of the action that you can give people, or the action that you're going to take. And if you take this action and we all take these actions, the values naturally come to life. So that was a really big turning point for us. And the moment we introduced these into our culture, I mean, night and day transformation, because people knew, they knew what it looked like. They could do it.
That's fantastic. And it reminds me of another book that is all around values. It was authored by Ann Rhodes. The book is called Built on Values. And Anne, her resume is decorated with a who's who in some of the most values-driven organizations like Southwest Airlines and JetBlue. And she's always been at the helm of the people and talent function. So just another great book that I would recommend. You'd love it. You'd love it. But you're already doing so much of where I think most organizations miss. And, they hang the values on the wall. There's a list of 7, 10, whatever the number is. And, the exercise that you did with your leadership team that's the proof. Are these values something that we really know and is part of the DNA, or is this just a poster on the wall that looks good for when people come to visit?
And, I think values, like these actions, these values, when everyone really understands them and knows what they mean, what they look like, it's such a powerful tool, especially for millennials.
Yep.
To be able to solve problems, because they're like a compass. And,
Yep.
and so what we say to our students is, as long as you make a decision that's in line with our values, it does not have to have the best outcome. The outcome could be horrible, but as long as the intent was there, as long as you really intended to make this decision and it's in line with the values and it wasn't, made out of greed or, we will support you. We will stand beside you. You will not lose your job. We may talk about how you could make a better decision next time, but we take the fear away and we give them a compass to make decisions. And that's how we're able to really empower them. And that is why the 14-year-olds have autonomy, because we know they can make a decision because they have these values. They know what they look like.
Yeah, they understand what the value in action, what the behavior looks like. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great. Good. Congratulations. It's just fantastic. As you're doing, I know you're doing a ton of speaking, which is great. I mean, you need to be out there doing what you're doing, so please keep it up. When you're out doing corporate events in particular, and the audience is a group of business professionals, I'm super curious. Is there a common question or two that you are always fielding?
Yes. So it's so funny because at the beginning of the talk, I believe a lot of times when I'm asked to speak, it's about the millennial generation. How do we engage our millennials at work? And, our millennials, we just can't figure them out. They're motivated differently. We don't understand. And so that's usually why I am called in. And at the beginning of the talk, I think everyone in the audience is thinking millennials, millennials, millennials. And by the end, it's so funny to see the shift, because people say out loud, wow, this isn't a millennial problem. This is everyone's problem. The things that millennials want, really it's the same things that we want. It's just millennials express it differently. And I think that's the key, is that 87% of our, according to Gallup, 87% of us are disengaged at work.
Right.
That's more than a millennial problem. So I think what starts as millennials, how do we, millennials have a problem, how do we change the culture so that they thrive? It shifts to, wow, we all kind of have a problem here. And how do we make our environment better so that we all thrive?
Yeah.
And I think the feedback piece with millennials, it's tough. You give a millennial feedback and they might cry, they might get angry, they might quit, or you might get a call from their mother or father. It's happened to us.
I can't even imagine. You must have some amazing stories about just some of the experiences that have happened over the last few years.
Yeah, and it's, and then I would say the other piece of it is, my millennial is telling me I want more responsibility, yet they're late. They're missing meetings, or they can't even handle the responsibilities they currently have. But again, why? How do we get to this point? Well, millennials were told you can do anything, you can be anything. The sky is the limit, and that was a picture that was painted for us, and it's not true, because money and experience and all these things matter, but we don't really realize that until we're now in the workforce, and it hits us like a ton of bricks. And what's so funny is that these people in the audience, they say, oh yeah, but then they realize, oh my goodness, I'm doing that to my child at home. There's what you're complaining about with your millennials at work, you're doing that to your children. So I think it becomes you almost leave thinking about the way you're parenting as well.
Because, you end up becoming you're like a family psychologist, all wrapped up in a business message.
Yeah, I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, at the end of the day, and you said this earlier, I'm a parent. I have two kids. It's done from a place of love. That's all. We want to love them and protect them and give them the best life that we can. And that, frankly, is that's what all parents really aspire to do. So at least it comes from the right place. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So, like, there's this other, I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about that. You started this organization, 6-ish, 7 years ago, cleaning toilets. Like,
Mhm.
not the most exciting thing in the world. You're cleaning toilets.
Mhm.
Yet I think what it demonstrates is from the entrepreneurial perspective that you've done the frontline work. Like, there's no one you're going to hire who's going to do a job you haven't done already. And obviously you did it incredibly well. Otherwise you wouldn't have the level of success that you're having. What can
Mhm.
what can be learned from cleaning toilets?
Yes, a lot. Humility is number one.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's really special that I started the way I did. At the time I didn't recognize that, but the fact that I can now say I have been in your shoes. I know what it feels like. I know when you tell your friend that you clean houses and someone makes fun of you. They call you a maid or a cleaning lady or a cleaning person. I know what that feels like. It doesn't feel good. And I think what that made me want to do is I wanted to have a situation where when you say I work with Student Maid, you're proud to say that. And when someone says, I can't believe you clean houses, or I can't believe you turned down a finance job for a cleaning company, or, oh, you're just a cleaning person, I want that student to be able to say back to them, no, I am not just a cleaning person. This is what we do. So I had to work to build something people will be proud of. And I think there's a lot that you can learn when you put yourself in the shoes of the people you lead. Every now and then I try to do the things maybe I haven't done in a while, like answer the phone and talk to a customer, or lead a team meeting in the morning before the students go out and clean their clients' houses. Because I think you have to constantly be reminded what they're going through every day and what they feel. And our leadership team, we've all been in their shoes. Our leadership team, everyone on our team, they started cleaning houses and then they grew into the role they're in now. And there's just something really powerful about being able to say, hey, I've been there. I know what you're going through. You have empathy for these people. It's hard. But I think when you see on someone's resume that they clean houses, they clean someone else's dirty toilet for 2 years, that says so much about a person. That person is willing to do whatever it takes. They aren't afraid of dirty work, of hard work, because it's hard. And so I have more respect for people now. When I see people in jobs like that, I have so much respect for them. And when I go in the airport and I see somebody sweeping the floor, I go up to them and I say, thank you for what you do. Because we do not recognize people who do these jobs enough.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. That's a really great point. It's a really great point. Your sister.
Yeah.
Does she work with you?
She did. Yes. We worked together for
It's Lauren,
almost
right?
2 years. Yes, Lauren. We were in a transition period, or she was in a transition period after college. So we worked together for 2 years. And it's so funny because she lives in New York now. And at the time, it was really hard to work together. It wasn't the right thing for us, for our relationship. But she never said she never really talked about what she learned in the culture. She never really said, thanks for the experience. So I always wondered, did this experience impact her? And then she just got a job. She's actually leading a team of people. It's a really big company in New York. And so she called me after she accepted the job and she said, I just want you to know that the time spent at Student Maid really helped me. And I asked the right questions in the interview about the culture, and I compared, the culture here to the culture that I knew with you. And so it was cool to hear that. But my mom works with us.
What's that like? What's that like?
I never thought that would happen. Well, one day I just asked, what's your dream job? You could do anything. Well, my sister and I were out of the house and she lives an hour and a half away from where our office is here. And she said, my dream job would be to work with your team at Student Maid. So she commutes to our office. She doesn't come every week, but she has called herself, she made up her own title as Bob. And so I came in one day and everyone's calling her Bob. And I asked, why are you calling her Bob? And I found out it stands for Boss of Boss. I will let you think that.
Sure.
But it's been really special. And she is so engaged and she loves it. And she's told our team, this is unlike anything I've ever been a part of. And I just wish that I could have had this experience, earlier in my life. And I think that proves it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's cleaning toilets, if it's Wall Street, if it's, it's the environment and how it makes you feel. And that's what it's all about. And it doesn't matter how old you are. I think that's something that everybody wants.
It all comes full circle back to where we started our conversation today and what you did for Mrs. Am I saying it right? Treaster?
Treaster, yes.
Yeah. It all goes back to when you were 15 and this behind the scenes, not looking for the spotlight, to do something that was really meaningful for someone else. And there was nothing in it for you whatsoever than to give of yourself to help someone else. And, it's a real lesson that I think can be taken away from what you're up to and will continue to do, that leadership and today's leaders, those that have the honor and privilege of leading companies, that it is their responsibility to create an environment where they're there to serve and develop everyone so that they can be their best person, bring their whole self to work, and create memorable and special experiences for the clients and coworkers that they interact with every day.
And it's not easy. Within the first year of me starting Student Maid, I had a day where 45 people quit on me the same exact time. I was not a good leader, but you learn. With every mistake, every mess up, you just learn and you become better. And I think I could be a much better leader than I am, but I'm doing the best I can. And every day I try to learn something new and be a better leader tomorrow than I am today. And I think if everyone just kind of had that mentality, what would our world look like? Yeah.
It's a great question and a really great place to pause here. And I just can't thank you enough, Kristen, for joining us. I think what you're up to, you and your team, and what you've built is incredibly special, and wish you nothing but the best on this continued journey. And, as I reflect back, and again, back to some of the research I did, and especially the businesses that you and your sister created when you were very little and selling household items and lemonade and all these different things. Based on your journey so far, it's probably not that monumental a prediction, but you're certainly destined for additional great things. And I can't wait to see what you continue to do.
Thank you.
Have a great road trip. I know you're out to do some speaking here. Is there any URL or websites or anything that you'd like to share with our listeners? Anything that is of the utmost importance to you right now, in addition to Student Maid?
Well, we do have a book that is being published by Penguin Books, and it will be released sometime in 2017. So I would say if our story is interesting to you and you want to learn more about our environment and how we created it, and how to create this in where you are, you could check my website, because I know that we'll have something on my site about the book and when it will be out. So my website is just KristenHadeed.com.
And that's Kristen, Kristen, Hadeed, HADEED.com.
Yes.
That's awesome. Kristen, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was great.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Until next time, thank you for listening, folks. You can obtain a transcribed version of this show and hear more interviews from the Built on Purpose podcast on our website, yscouts.com/podcast. There were quite a few questions I didn't have the opportunity to address during my time with Kristen. I'm guessing you may have a burning question or two as well. Kristen has agreed to answer any further questions from our listeners, so please drop me a line at brian@yscouts.com with your questions, and I'll forward them on to Kristen. If you enjoyed her interview, there are several others I think you'll dig as well. Megan French Dunbar, co-founder of Conscious Company magazine, Louis Efron, author of How to Find a Job, Career, and Life You Love, and Ann Rhodes, former Chief People Officer at Southwest Airlines and author of Built on Values, are just a few of the many episodes you can find at yscouts.com/podcast. I promise more great interviews are on the way. Thanks again for listening.